Past 6 p.m., I'll go ahead and call the Winnebago County Board of Supervisors to order a special orders session and redistricting public hearing for today. The county clerk has confirmed the roll, and we do have a quorum this evening. So the first items on the agenda are the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by Supervisor Powers. And if you could please all remain standing after that for a moment of silence for the passing of Supervisor Bob Warnke. If you could please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the invocation by Supervisor Powers. If you could please open up the mic for Supervisor Powers.
Creator of all things and lover of all humankind, we ask your blessing on our gathering tonight. Help us keep in mind our work here is to serve all the people of Winnebago County and to strive for cooperation with others serving Wisconsin and the nation. We mourn the loss of our colleague, Bob. Into your hands, O merciful Creator, we commend your servant, Robert Warnke. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock, a sinner of your own redeeming. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious light. Amen.
Thank you, Supervisor Powers. And now I'll say more later. If you could please all join me in a moment of silence for the passing of Supervisor Bob Warnke. Thank you. Please be seated. Next item on the agenda is a motion to adopt this evening's agenda. For that, I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht. There's a motion and a second to adopt this evening's agenda. Any discussion? We'll do a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. That motion carries. Moving on down to the next item, and that's an item during each meeting in which we give an opportunity for the public to speak under county jurisdiction and any item on our agenda this evening. I do want to note that this is a public hearing for redistricting, so if you have comments specific about the redistricting, you will have an opportunity again after the presentation to provide any public comments or questions as well. So what we'll do after the presentation this evening, we will have public comments and open it up for any other public comments, and then we'll close the floor to public comments, and then we'll move on to any comments or questions from any county board members. So I'll open it up. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak this evening? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Please, and if you could please state your name and address for the record, please, and if we could try to keep our comments to 3 minutes. Thank you. Please go ahead, sir.
I just want to basically thank you guys for your guys' hard work and doing all this redistricting and all the stuff you guys had to go through to get this all done in this short period of time. I do appreciate the time you guys do spend doing all this stuff for us in the community, and not everybody comes to all the meetings and understands what you guys go through. And I just want to say thank you to what you guys do. I've been going to some of the committee meetings, and I have not realized how much stuff you guys actually do and how much time you guys actually spend on all this stuff. And there again, I'd just like to thank you all for serving your community and serving us as residents. Thank you.
Thanks, sir, and thank you for your comments. We'll open it up for any other public comments from those present, and then we'll move on to see if there's anyone from the public on the Zoom call who has any comments. Is there anyone else in person who has any comments? I'll ask one last time, any public comments? Very good, and once again, there'll be an opportunity in regards to redistricting after the presentation. We'll open it up again for public comments. So we'll move on to any public comments from the Zoom. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on the Zoom call this evening? Is there anyone from the public on the Zoom call who wishes to speak this evening? I see one caller. There's one individual under the name owner. And if you could please state your name and address for the record, please. Your mic is open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? It seems like the individual under owner, your hand went down. I just want to make sure if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on Zoom, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Okay, seeing none. And once again, everyone who's on the Zoom call, if you have comments or questions about redistricting, we're going to have again another opportunity after the redistricting presentation, so there will be another opportunity as well once you hear that presentation. Very good. So we'll close that portion of the agenda and we'll move on to reports from committees, commissions, and boards. Any reports from any committees, commissions, and boards? I see a couple call-ins. Supervisor Rasmussen, do you have a report? No? Okay, very good. Supervisor Binder, you have a report? No?
Well, I'll just say that I can comment on the dog park. The fence is up on the dog park, and we should have a light opening sometime in October. I was out there the other Sunday, and before the fence was up, I see 2 people using it, so I think it's going to be a big hit.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Binder. Any reports from any committees, commissions, and boards from any county board member on Zoom? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion of the agenda. So we'll move on to county board chairman's report. So first, I just want to make sure everyone knew that Supervisor Joas and Supervisor Snyder asked to be excused. And then I also wanted to comment, as you heard in regards to the moment of silence, unfortunately, one of our supervisors, Supervisor Bob Warnicki, passed away since the last meeting. He passed away as of August 23rd at the age of 78. Now, many of you knew him, and frankly, many of you knew him better than I did. And sometimes, you read and learn about individuals a little bit more after they passed away. And in many ways, I kind of think that's unfortunate because you always want to know and appreciate as much as you can while they're alive. But nonetheless, I read and learned a little bit more about Supervisor Bob Warnicki after his passing. And for those of you who don't know, Supervisor Bob Warnicki was a Navy veteran, actually. And he worked in this community for the Leach Company for 37 years. And then after that, he had a successful real estate business for 15 years. And I think as many of you know, he served on this county board for 18 years, including service as chair of the Veteran Service Commission. He was also on the Aviation Committee, was instrumental with the General Aviation construction as well. He also was vice chair of the Highway Committee during his time on this board. But I still remember the day when I was on this board and he got up and made the comment about getting his bachelor's degree at age 70. It truly was inspiring, and I got to thank for so many folks out there that had the day so inspiring too, demonstrating the importance that he placed on education and really personal development. I think that personal development, he was making that statement, at least that's how I took it, and I really took that to heart. Now, there were quite a few members at his funeral. Frankly, there was quite an attendance from throughout the community. But when I attended the funeral, there was this card with his picture on. And I almost didn't pick it up, to be truthful, but just because I wanted to leave it for other people to be able to pick up. But nonetheless, I decided to pick it up. And as I was walking to my car, I turned it over. And there's a story on it. And it's this. It's Bob Warnicki at corporate headquarters. Toad set Arkansas. And first there's a story, and then there's a little wisdom, and I'm going to read it to you all. It struck me that day, I'll tell you that, particularly the wisdom. And it's highlighted here. It says, "What's up, Commander? How are you, all you little dumplings, doing out there?" Well, it's old Bob back again at the keyboard. Again, like most years, it has been a crazy year. There's so much to write. I could do a 3 to 4 pager, but I know you have to take your nap soon, so I'll condense it as much as possible. I don't want you to fall out of your rocker and spill your whiskey. Now a few words of wisdom, and I really took these to heart. 3 things we need to survive in this world. Number 1, a funny bone. Number 2, a wishbone. Number 3, a backbone. I think it's great advice for all of us right here on this county board. I think that advice, right, is so true with so many things we do, right? A little bit of a sense of humor, sticking up for what you believe, and also wishing for the best, not only for the county, but everyone else. So that wisdom rang true for me, and I know that so many of us will miss Supervisor Warnke, but we got to take a lot from his life lessons. So I just wanted to share some of that with you all. I had a couple other announcements to make. Number 1, I did learn recently that Supervisor Nicole Newhoff has officially resigned from the county board. Now she represents District 8 in Neenah, in the city of Neenah. So we are preparing a posting to fill that seat, so I just wanted to make you aware of that, and as well for former Supervisor Bob Warnke's seat as well. And then a couple other reminders. It's budget time almost. So just as a reminder, it's coming up pretty quickly. So our first budget session is in about a month and a half. Monday, November 1st at 6 o'clock, and then on Tuesday and Wednesday if needed. So I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. And then just as a reminder of everyone with the redistricting process, so today is not a voting session, it's a presentation about the voting maps, and so it's for us all to gain a better understanding. Now there will be a vote at the county board 1 week from today on September 21st, and that is to officially approve the tentative redistricting map. So at that point there will be a vote by this county board on one of these maps that will be presented this evening and that you'll have the opportunity to comment on. And with that, that concludes my reports. So we'll move on to the main item on the agenda tonight, which is the presentation and discussion of the tentative county redistricting maps submitted by the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. We'll ask Jerry Bougie, our Winnebago County Planner, as well as Adam Dorn and Diane Culver from GIS, if they could please go ahead and start their presentation. And as well, if anyone here who's in person, if you need a map, we do have some extra ones up here if you need one.
Well, good evening, everyone. We have before you 2 map options that have been recommended by the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee from their meeting yesterday. We developed 3 maps, and they moved two of those maps along to the county board for further consideration. What I will do here is give a little overview on some of the specifics about or things we need to keep in mind when we create the maps. Then Diane Culver, our county GIS specialist, will kind of go a little deeper into the maps and talk about some of the, things that she, her thought process as she went through and created those maps. So, again, to start with, as you all know, we have a 3-stage process. We're currently in stage 1. We're developing a county tentative plan, and that will be, again, before you next week, Tuesday, for a vote and a decision on that map. And also, after the county board does adopt a map, tentative plan, that gets sent on to the local municipalities in stage 2, where the local municipalities go ahead and create their wards. That information is sent back to the county, where in stage 3, the final plan is taken up by the county board for final approval. So again, normally we have a 60-day process per stage, but again, as you know, this year we are dealing with a much shorter time frame, a compressed time frame. Basically, a 6-month time frame has been shortened to 3 months. So, next slide. So far, we've had, I just wanted to kind of point out the various public input opportunities that we've had as part of the plan development. August 9th, we had a Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting where the public had an opportunity to comment. As you remember, August 17th at the county board meeting, we also had another public comment period. Yesterday morning, further public comment, again, on the actual plan options before the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. Here we are tonight on September 14th with a formal public hearing that was a part of a Class 3 public hearing notice. Next Tuesday at the county board meeting, there will be an opportunity for the public to comment once again. It's not a hearing, but it will be available for public comment. And then jumping ahead in November, on the 16th of November, we are looking at this county board to have a final approval, again, a formal public hearing, a Class 3 public hearing notice. And both of those public hearings are required by state statute. The one tonight and the one on November 16th are required to have a public hearing for both the tentative plan and the final plan. Next slide. Now I'm just going to kind of go into some of the things that we need to consider as part of creating these maps. A couple of the important things we need to keep in mind: there's some federal requirements, there's something under the U.S. Constitution. This top item, this equal population, is our #1 criteria that we need to ensure that we're meeting. It's basically trying to keep districts fairly equal in population so that there's equal representation. Another item that's important at a federal level is minority population. That's a much bigger issue for other areas of the state or country that have more significant minority populations. You need to make sure that you're addressing that properly, that you're not diluting those populations, and that they're taken into consideration. Just real quick on equal population, again, this is our key criteria, #1 criteria we need to meet here. Just an example, we may have let's say we had a county of 5 million people. We had 50 districts, that would mean 100,000 per district. Simple math. Your deviation, let's say you had a deviation, the largest district would have 2,000 over that, and the smallest district would have 1,000 under, so you'd have a deviation of about 3,000 persons, and you'd end up with a deviation of 3% from the highest to the lowest. That's an important consideration. Courts have held that you need to stay under 10% to, for it to be considered acceptable for equal population. So 3% is a good percentage, but you need to try to stay under 10% when you create these maps. Next slide. Just a couple other things. We got contiguous and non-contiguous districts. You try to, create contiguous districts the best you can. If you have some non-contiguous districts, you may have a couple of islands out there. That's acceptable when you may have some city territory that may be separated from the actual city itself. You can end up with certain little islands out there. But you want to try to stay as contiguous, keep the municipality as contiguous as possible. That's one consideration. Another one is compactness. Try to make them nice and compact, and not have them all wander all over the place. Next slide. Just an example here. When you try to meet compactness and try to keep the municipalities whole, sometimes they don't play well together. What you try to do the best you can is in the town of, this thing is, for instance, we have a district, District 10, that's in option 1. You've got the town of Neenah and the city of Neenah kind of going in and out. But the idea here is you want to keep the city together and the town together. So you're going to end up with these kind of strange looking areas at times to try to keep the municipality whole. You're going to give up some compactness, but you try to keep the municipality whole so the city is city and the town is town. The same thing here, in that second example. You have a city of Oshkosh boundary that kind of dives down along Highway 41. But again, you try to keep the city with city and town with town. But you can't always do that on the right, on the far right. You will see a district that is fairly compact, but yet it does have city and town together. There's really no way to make a map so pure that you can keep the city and the town completely separate. There are times where you're going to have to cross and overlap. Next slide. Just a couple other things we need to keep in mind when we create these maps. Preservation of community interest. You have to sort of survey your community or your county and determine, are there certain things we need to keep in mind. For us, really, we want, the idea is we want to try to keep the city of Amarillo, the village of Winnebago within their own districts. So and also we've got the university population, which is another consideration. We try to keep in one district because it's a common interest issue, and we do need to try to address it and try to meet that need. Preservation of political subdivisions. Basically, what they're saying there is that, again, to try to keep municipalities whole. But oftentimes you can't completely keep a map so pure where you're keeping the town separated from the city. Sometimes you will cross over and have districts that will include part town and part city. You try to avoid that as much as you can, but it does happen. Next slide. Yeah, and just quickly in summary, again, our number one consideration is equal population. We gotta meet that criteria first. The other criteria are, in 2, 3, and 4 are more of state requirements that you should keep in mind. The contiguity and the wholeness of municipalities and compactness. And again, the minority population is a federal requirement. And again, it's not a big issue for Winnebago County so much, but again, in other areas of the state and country it is. Next slide. Just a couple more considerations that we try to keep in mind here is try to keep the rural representation intact the best we can. There's also an issue with the 2011 map in number 2 here that we had a district that was separated out in the town of Wolf River, town of Poygan, and town of Winchester, and that was all, there was, the same district was separated by Lake Poygan, and we certainly kept that in mind, and the maps this time around don't have that issue. And again, the communities of interest, as mentioned, UW-Oshkosh campus, for instance, City of Amarillo, Village of Winneconne, we try to keep in the same district. And we were successful in doing that. Next slide. Just a kind of a graphic showing some population change from the 2010 census to the 2020 census. Kind of took the 2010 map, current supervisory district map, and just kind of laid in the 2020 population, today's population. And you can really see the changes in population. Those darker greens are showing that those districts, current supervisory districts, really increased in population over the last 10 years. You can see it on the west side of Neenah, kind of out in town of Clayton, village of Fox Crossing, some of those areas. And then those areas in pink you kind of see in the city of Oshkosh and up in the city of Neenah and Menasha. Those pinker colors showed districts that decreased in population over the last 10 years. So given that, you're going to end up with shifts in population, and so the districts, even though you're still at the same number of districts, which is 36, you're going to end up with different boundaries because you got to try to accommodate those newer shifts in population. So that kind of gives you a feel, and also there's, back in 2011 when this map was adopted, we had a 5% deviation. Now, if you adopted the same map with the current population, you'd end up with a deviation of nearly 34%, which is way out of what's considered acceptable. Again, 10% is a max. So you can just see how much the population has shifted and changed in the county. Next slide. Oh, yeah. So now we're going to have Diane Culver go over the two options that the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee moved on to the county board here. And Diane will give her thoughts on and how she went about putting these maps together.
Okay, just want to go over just some of the thoughts that went into developing these plans. One of the, based on the feedback from the county board at the last couple meetings, one of the concerns was that District 36 crossed Lake Poygan. So I started in the northwest part of the county and basically kept 36 all north of the lakes there.
And just a comment, I see Supervisor Eisen with a hand. What we're going to do is we're going to have them do the presentation. Oh, did you have a point of order, Morgan? Yeah. Oh, please.
Could Diane explain to the board why option 2 was eliminated from the 3 options? It's a very rational and important reason, and for that, alleviate the doubts that supervisors may have about the recommendation of the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, so let's have her do her presentation, and she can add to that as she sees fit. And then once you're all done with the presentation, we'll have the public be able to provide their comments about redistricting, and then we're going to come to the board for any questions or comments so that we can kind of keep it.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hopefully we can just come back to that. So 36 on both options 1 and 3. is just north of the lakes, and it basically shifted everything more into the town of Clayton. So that left a void basically in the town of Poygan here. So it was combined with District 33, which is also a very rural district. And then that left some area in the town of Utica. So that 32, which it previously, or in the current plan, went into the town of Oshkosh in this area here. It was taken out of the city of Oshkosh, sorry, and is now in 3 towns. So again, we're preserving the rural representation in these districts. If you want to go to the next slide. So in this slide, for option 3, those districts were basically kept the same. The difference in these 2 plans is basically in the Neenah area and the Oshkosh area. And the next couple slides, we'll just kind of go over some of the differences in those plans. Okay, so now in the Neenah area here, if you will see in the southwest part of Neenah, the city, it kind of comes out in this goofy pattern here, which again is just following corporate limits, as it is along with District 7 and 8. And what happens here is that in District 30, it is completely in the town of Neenah, Vinland. There's a bit in the town of Winnebago and a little bit in the town of Oshkosh. So it is completely rural. But it does, however, give you a little bit of a snaky pattern up in the town here, but it's just, the roads kind of look like spaghetti, and that's how it looks. If you look at the option 3, it's a little more cleaned up in this area. District 9 goes along County Road JJ. However, District 30 now creeps into the city of Neenah. So that's kind of a trade-off in that respect. There's a slight deviation between 5, 6, 7, and 8. A little bit different configuration, but still meets all the deviation standards. Next slide. So in the Oshkosh area, again, in the town of Oshkosh, it's in 2 districts, just 12 and 30. 12, of course, creeps into the city of Oshkosh because it just does not have the population to support a whole district. And of course, the south side, following the corporate limits on 21 and 25 in both scenarios here. In option 1, District 24 is the district that crosses between town and city. Now, if you look at option 3, it's a little more cleaned up along the north edge. I mean, districts 25, 22, and 20. They all follow basically Witzel Avenue, very clean. However, now you have 2 districts that cross municipal boundaries. So in option 1, the town of Algoma is in 2 districts. It's in 31 and 24. But in option 3, it is in 24, 31, and 23. So again, it's a trade-off. So basically, that's the difference between the 2 plans. They're very similar. If we come to the statistics, the deviation range is literally the difference between the 2 plans is 1 person. When it comes to the number of districts per municipality, that is where we're talking about the wholeness of municipalities. Option 1 scores a little bit better than option 3, but that's, again, just by those 2 districts. As far as compactness goes, actually it's kind of a wash there. One has a better range, and the other one just has a better average. So when we ranked these 2 plans, equal population, I gave a 1 to option 1 and a 2 to option 3. You might even want to give them a 0 because they are so close. The wholeness of municipalities, again, option 1 is better there. Compactness, I gave a 0 to both categories because it's, like I said, depending on which score you want to look at, it's kind of the same. So for a total ranking score, I guess option 1 would score better statistically on this. If you want to look at the tables on the right, it's just showing that what we talked about, District 23 in option 1, it was in 1 municipality. It's in 2 municipalities on option 3. And option 30, again, is in 4 municipalities on 1 and in 5 on option 3. And then the wholeness of municipalities, I guess, the city of Neenah on option 1 has 6 districts. It's in 7 on option 3. And Algoma, again, 2 districts and 3 districts, respectively. And again, just a comment on option 2, it was not forwarded to the county board by the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee. The reasons I believe would probably, that question would be better answered by somebody from the committee, actually. I mean, I didn't have any voting power on that, so I don't know if I feel comfortable answering that question.
Well, we'll let someone from the committee, once we come back after the public comments, we'll have a committee member explain that then.
Okay. If there are any other questions or comments, Jerry and I can answer them.
Very good, okay. Director Bougie, before we move to public comments, anything else further? Okay, very good. First, though, we're going to do public comments about the redistricting. We're going to finish the public comments in person, then we'll do it on Zoom, then we'll bring it to all the county board supervisors for their question and comments afterward, okay? And that's to avoid going too much back and forth, so everyone knows where we're at any given time. So we're going to open it up to the public in person here today if they have any questions or comments on the redistricting plan. If so, go ahead and step forward to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please. And then once we're done with public comments in person, we'll move to public comments on Zoom, and then we'll bring it to the county board. Please, sir, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Nathan Sturtz, 1524 East Murdoch, Oshkosh. My biggest question is when you guys said that you had to expedite this faster than the normal process. I would like an answer to the question as of why. And then the other question is, I guess the purpose for doing this is just for the numbers and making it equal representation. That was the other question that I had. And I just want to thank you guys for doing a good job of explaining everything that was going on. So thank you for doing that. Those are the 2 questions that I had.
Very good. Director Bougie, I know you've done it before, but maybe if you could go over the timeline a little bit and the reasoning for the timeline and how it fits into redistricting with other municipalities in the community and county.
Yeah, the process was shortened, due to the pandemic. The state, not just Wisconsin, but all the states didn't receive their census numbers from the federal government until late in the game here. We received ours on August 16th, at which time we were then able to start the process. Normally, in a normal year or a redistricting year, you receive those numbers by April 1st, and then you have a 180-day roughly process to create the maps. This year we received the numbers again in August, middle of August, which shrunk the process in half, and this is to allow the nomination papers to be taken out by December 1st, which is a state statute for that whole process. So it's to allow the spring elections to occur on time. So that's why the process was or has been shortened. And there was a bill that was introduced at the state level to push this all out and allow everyone more time to get this done, but that was vetoed by the governor. So every county in the state is basically facing the same short time frame.
Did you have one other question? I don't think I got it accurately, but you had one other question, I think. I just want to make sure we answered everything you were asking.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on the purpose for the redistricting. I
Very good.
kind of got out of that the reason for that is just the population changes and to have it equal for each district. So I'm guessing that was the purpose, but I just wanted to make sure that that was what was the purpose for it.
Yeah, and it's also state law that municipalities, counties, and the state go through this process. I mean, it's to establish new districts every 10 years with the new census. It's part of state law. So.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. Is there anyone else from the public in person who has any comments or questions in regards to the redistricting plan? Please, sir, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Jim Erdman, 2492 Hickory Lane, town of Oshkosh. I also chair the town of Oshkosh, and I want to thank you folks for all the work you do, the work you did in the last month with addressing the issue of the county board size, kept more voices at the table, and it's important. You guys took that very seriously, and I appreciate your efforts there. This issue of the different maps, I think the two maps on the table that you left on the table, both are better from the perspective of you're not as compact with the census blocks. Census blocks don't recognize whether there's city or town people. Not that we want a city people versus town people issue in the county, but the fact is cities are governed by different statutes for land use than towns, the unincorporated areas. The towns are under different guidelines and statutes than cities and villages. The funding for programs, the roads are totally different in the towns than they are with DOT in the cities and villages. How you can develop TIFs. Cities and villages are allowed to do tax incremental funding. Towns are not. So there's a lot of difference in interest here, and some of these issues come up when you have to make recommendations or govern on issues or pending legislation. So sometimes it is a city versus town thing. The options you have on the table, two of them have improved over what we presently have over going by voting wards, because there's areas where every other house, and maybe you don't call them islands, especially when they're on the water. Water is neutral, either city or town, but it's every other house, city, town, city, town, city, town. Yet now, on option 1 and 3 in the urban towns, Neenah and Oshkosh, these go by voting wards, so it is more a city representing your interests in the city, in town, in the town. They could have been done better. But if the more you do with trying to get the cities together and the towns together in these voting wards, the less compactness you have. So option 1, like you say, it probably does a better job of it. There's differences in the big rural districts of whether 1 or 3 would be better, but 1 probably from the perspective of the wards being the town wards being a town representative, the city wards being a city representative, probably 1 does the best job of that. I want to appreciate your staff put a lot of work into this, and you're listening to the people. You're doing a very good job. I want to thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public in person who wishes to speak in regards to the redistricting plan? Please, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Kathleen Propp, 1936 Hazel Street, Oshkosh.
Thank you.
Thank you again to the planners for their excellent work on these maps. I was impressed. I spoke to the Judiciary Committee meeting yesterday. I appreciated that opportunity. And at that time, I said that my district in Oshkosh, District 14, did not like the option 2, where it combined, as Jim Erdman said, the city and town to a great extent. And that and other reasons, thank you to Judiciary for taking that one off the table. I still prefer option 1. According to the scores, the rankings, it scores slightly better. And does a slightly better job of preserving rural representation by keeping municipalities whole. That's the only thing that's a minor objection to either of these maps is the town islands sprinkled in there, but that is what it is, and I understand why the planners did it, and I think, as Jim says, the rural people deserve to be able to keep together. So I'm still supporting option 1, but option 3 would be tolerable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public in person who wishes to speak on the redistricting plan? Us one another time. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in person on the redistricting plan? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move to Zoom. Is there anyone from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak this evening on the redistricting plan? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. We'll call on you in succession. Is there anyone from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak in regards to the redistricting plan? If so, go ahead and please raise your Zoom hand. We're just looking through just to make sure we're not missing anybody. Kathy?
Kathy Chapman is trying to get your attention.
Very good. Okay, Kathy Chapman, we're just going to go ahead and try to open up your mic. We're just working to unmute your mic, Ms. Chapman. Kathy Chapman, if you could go ahead and attempt to unmute on your end. It looks like we're unable to on our end.
Okay, do you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you well. Please go ahead.
Kathy Chapman, 2849 Sheldon Drive in the town of Algoma. I'm just overwhelmed by all this work that's been done. I'm new to this experience. My only comment would be how to reach as many people as possible with this information for future education. Maybe the schools, maybe the newspaper has not done a good job here. I saw a very small notice in the paper, and I was surprised that I feel we're overlooking, and you're overlooking, possibly, the opportunity to educate people as to what redistricting is. That's my comment.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments. Certainly agree with you. We're always trying to find ways to do better with outreach and communication, and we'll continue to try to do that. We did try to put it in the papers. We also had it on the website, but it's accurate to say we can always find ways to do better, and we're going to continue to try to do that. So thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on the redistricting plan? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Is there anyone else from the public on Zoom who wishes to speak on the redistricting plan? If so, go ahead and raise your Zoom hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that portion. We'll move it to the county board. I know there were some comments and questions. Supervisor Eisen, I know you had some comments before. I see a couple calling in as well. I'll try to balance it between in-person as well as on Zoom as best I can. But Supervisor Rasmussen, you actually were first. Did you have some comments? And then it would be Supervisor Eisen. No? Okay. I'm sorry, I see your name up there. So, all right, very good. So we'll move to Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Fari. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the Judiciary and Public Safety Committee meeting, County Clerk Ertman presented a rationale of why option 2 was not a preferred. And I would defer to Clerk Ertman to explain to supervisors the dilemma that is created with elections on option 2.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Yes, after Diane and Jerry did their presentation and explained to us that option 2 would divide the town of Oshkosh into 4 supervisory districts. And anytime you start, giving or having a township have that many divisions, it just creates a problem as far as different ballot styles, because they have multiple school districts there as well. So now you're dividing out by supervisor district, you're dividing it out by school district. There's a potential that, you could have multiple assembly districts, possibly not. But so anytime you can minimize those divisions, it's very helpful on an election, and the election standpoint. So, thank you.
Thank you, Clerk Ertmer. Anything further, Supervisor Eisen, before we move to Supervisor Fari? Very good. We'll move to Supervisor Fari next, then Supervisor Borchert, then Supervisor Cox. Please go ahead, Supervisor Fari.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I received an email from Supervisor Schneider, who's not with us tonight, and he asked me to read this into the record. So I will read from the email. And generally, he's concerned about part of the town of Winnebago becoming in District 30, which is currently my district. He stated, I'm quoting, he stated with the new redistricting maps, the current town chair of Winnebago, Matt Woods, would not live in District 35 and would not be able to run or vote for County Board Supervisor District 35, which is currently Tom Schneider. He would have to run against you, that would be myself, is the picture I got from Tom. I assume he's referring to Tom Egan, I believe. He asked that I share this with the board because he would not be able to be here tonight. I think his point in general is that even with map 1 or map 3, Winnebago is being divided up, and the current town chairman of Winnebago, who lives on County Road M, would be in a district other than 35. Obviously, he had hopes of running at some point to replace Tom Schneider. So I think that's probably the focus of the email. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Supervisor Fari. And just so all county supervisors know, so right now I have Supervisor Borchert next, Supervisor Cox, then Supervisor Gabbard, Supervisor Schellinger, and then Supervisor Defferting. Did you have your hand up at one point? No. Okay, very good. So next we'll call on Supervisor Borchert on Zoom. Supervisor Borchert, please go ahead.
Thank you. Just an observation, and I'm sure there's a reason for it. Between District 3 and 27, there's one lot between the road and the lake, and between Supervisor Cox and 27 and 3. Is there a reason for that?
Which plan are you referring to?
Both 1 and 3, I believe. 27 jumps across Little Lake Mutamore, but then down for 1 and 2, it doesn't do it down there. And there's got to be some logical reason why they didn't do it, but I just was wondering what it was.
So GIS and planning are taking a look at it, and we'll give you an answer.
Okay. Doesn't have to be tonight.
Okay, I think I see the area that you're talking about. The western edge of District 3. Let me get a larger. Yeah, there's probably about 3 census blocks in 27 where it does cross Little Lake Butamore. That district there, 27, is all in the village of Fox Crossing. There was not quite enough population between districts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 26 to fill up that area. So one of the districts had to span the lake, and it was a district that was all in one municipality, since the city of Menasha only goes to the western shore of the lake. It does not actually take in any land on the western shore. So 27 was the district that crossed.
So it's a Fox Crossing thing then?
27 is completely in the village of Fox Crossing.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Borchert. Next, we'll call on Supervisor Cox. Supervisor Cox?
I'm here. For looking at the map from the perspective of an incorporated village, okay, and the islands that we have on the east side of Little Butamore, okay, I can understand Mr. Borchert's question quite clearly, that you have taken from me, which I'm on 27, the entire ward of our Ward 8. Now, that is blocked off, and all of the borders of all of our little pieces of islands on the east side of the lake belong to Fox Crossing. They don't belong to Menasha. And those individual islands should really remain Fox Crossing districts. And that is why they were set up the way they were the last time around. Mr. Eisen has, I believe, district number 4. Susan Locke has district number 26 on the old map. But what you have done with rejiggering these is taking us out of our district people, okay, and we have 5 of them. They've taken us out of being a part of our own village and moved us into areas that really command us to be in those in the areas, in the islands on the east side. So I wonder, if they can be restacked in some way and get us back into those areas so that we have, our voters are already assigned to certain vote polls or poll areas. And like Mr. Stafford in the last meeting pointed out, those voters are going to come very likely to the polling place that they once voted in, and they're going to be turned back and asked to go to a different polling place because we haven't had enough time to have the clerks go out and make sure that these people know what voting or polling place they're supposed to be in. On top of that, you've moved me off of what was Clayton's border, okay? That would be the far west border. And you continually moved me back to a point where I too was faced with being removed from my district and not being able to run the next time around. Okay? We took care of that by taking number 2 option and moving it. and doing away with it. But now, if I don't get number 3, I'm still out of areas with regard to the subdivisions that I worked on as a planner in Fox Crossing. And I know those people. I would, I'm afraid what's going to happen is they're going to end up going over to, it used to be Spring Road School, they'll be going to, I think it's Bethany Christian Church to vote rather than to the municipality or the municipal building that we vote in. So do you understand what I'm getting at with regard to the islands? Okay.
Sorry, is this on? Okay, good. When it comes to districts 3 and 4, in the current plan, 4 is divided. 10 years ago, it was the town of Menasha, not the village of Fox Crossing. It was a town. So it was separated town versus the city. Since you incorporated, it is basically a village. They are now both incorporated municipalities. So to make them more compact and together, 4 had part of the city of Menasha in it before, and it does this time as well. Some of these districts have to expand and contract based on where the population has shifted. Some of these districts, if you looked at the map of the population, District 4 lost population. So did District 3. We have to grab more blocks to get those to be equal population.
We provide services for both portions of 4. We provide services for 26, and we provide services for 27 on that side of the lake. Yes. Including the police and the fire and whatever, okay? It would seem to me that you'd want to keep them to a point where we can all seem to vote together and talk over the service issues and whatever else.
I'm not sure how to answer that question. If it was a question, the fire and police have nothing to do with redistricting.
I realize that. They are combined in the voting when they're brought over to the community center to do their voting. They're not asked to go somewhere else to vote.
Whatever the municipal clerk decides to, be their polling place, that's where they're going to vote.
Any other questions, Supervisor Cox?
Well, I guess I've tried to make a point there. I don't know that it's been taken.
Executive Damo, you have some comments in regards to it?
Yeah. Supervisor Cox, I understand exactly what you're saying. And that's exactly why this process usually takes 180 days. And that's exactly why the census numbers, we needed them April 1st. So this process would normally be, we had this discussion, we go back, we change the maps, we come back with that input. I really think that they tried to do the absolute best they could within making sure that we don't have multiple ballots. Yeah, go ahead.
I certainly believe they have done as good as they possibly can.
Correct.
And I want to apologize to
Yeah.
I want to apologize to Jerry for the last meeting while he was standing up there, that I got a little carried away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I did. But I apologize, and I think you're doing a great job. Yeah. But I wanted to make sure that
Yes.
we understood that those islands are fixed.
Absolutely.
They have borders around them now that can't be taken away.
Of course, we would all have loved this to be a better process. We would have loved this to be over the 180 days. We all would have loved to have the census numbers in April. We would have loved to not have a district based on UWO is now going to be shaped for the next 10 years based off census numbers in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, that's going to be skewed. This is why I think the state representatives wanted to give us an extension, and this is why that veto hurt so bad. Normally, this should be a 180-day process, and we should have absolutely Supervisor Cox to have these concerns and us to go back to the drawing board and be able to do what we can. And I can assure you that these people would never do anything spiteful or purposefully, and I'm not saying that you're recommending that. All I'm saying is that for us to be able to do this in 80 days, we knew it was going to be tough. We knew that there were going to be situations like this. That's why I took my executive comment in one of our meetings to let you know when the veto happened, that this is exactly the process we're going to do. And one of the things that we need to keep in mind is that all the municipalities are going to have to go through the same thing on a condensed timeline. And I think what our GIS really tried to do is make sure that we are trying to keep as many of those districts whole as possible. But we can't do it for everyone, and I see that we may have some in Fox Crossings that may be a victim of that. At this point, I'm not really sure if we have any wiggle room to go back and change, because everything is already on the agenda for next week, Tuesday, and we have to make a vote on that so we can get it to the municipalities, because if we don't step up and make our decisions here, then if we don't have our districts set by December 1st so people can take out their nomination papers, we will all be liable for the results of that. So I do very much hear your concerns, and I put a lot of weight in what you're saying. I just don't know if we can go back and delay it. But I can guarantee you that we will work, and Sue will work to make sure that as many of the voting wards can stay together and minimal ballots as possible.
Thank you, Executive Damon.
Can I help in any way to clarify or bring our maps, to at least look to the changes?
I would have to ask Corporation Council. I don't think we can we? Because these are already set for next week, correct? And any changes we do right now would be less than a week notice, and that would be breaking the statutes, correct? All right. Supervisor Cox, I wish I had a better answer for you, but this is what we're dealing with right now, and I do apologize for that.
All right. Very good. Okay, point of order. Please go ahead. You can go ahead and open up your mic at the bottom. If we could please go ahead and open up the mic for Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have to say, if Mr. Wingren, Supervisor Wingren, a couple times yesterday at the committee meeting said, and now that we're into the supervisor's comments or whatever, you got to remember, these are redistricting of districts, not supervisors.
Okay, hold on.
So you can't say you're taking them out of mine.
You're making comments I need to follow. I thought you were going to have a point of order of what we're doing in the process. But I have you in the queue, so they're
okay.
Before I got to let them.
I'm just saying, you can't say it's my district because it's not. That's not what we're talking about.
And I do have you in the queue. You're
All right,
number 4
thank
up.
you.
So I just, because a number of people have been waiting. So everyone is clear. Next will be Supervisor Gabbard, then Supervisor Schellinger, then Supervisor Eisen, then Supervisor Lautenschlager, and then Supervisor Albrecht. Okay? So next we'll move to Supervisor Gabbard. Please go ahead, Supervisor Gabbard.
First of all, I want to thank you for putting these maps together. And as you all can see, District 12 is crazy. I still have right now will have the prison in my district, and whoever runs for 12 will have the prison in their district. I hope it's me, because that's important to me. I could go for hours explaining why, but I think I spoke my piece last time. So if you look at 12, 12 is probably the craziest one we have. But again, it represents the town and pieces of the city, which 12 has been represented that way for a long time. So I came tonight looking at 1 and 3 and not 2, so I was truthfully glad that 2 was not an option to take. I did not realize until tonight, I thought I had the handle on this, whatever's presented by judiciary is what goes forward. I thought that the board could push all 3 forward, but I'm understanding tonight that is not correct. Is that?
No, my understanding is that they recommended that the board consider 1 and 3.
Okay. So thanks again for your work. I'm satisfied with 1 or 3.
Thank you, Supervisor Gabbard. Next, we'll have Supervisor Schellinger, followed by Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Schellinger?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, my first question is if you could talk a little bit about if there were any considerations for some of the future plans around annexations as you started to build these, particularly in those districts that sort of blend between the urban and rural, where some of those future annexations are planned.
Yes, I did take into consideration annexation, and if you look at district option 1, specifically in the town of Algoma, or in option 3, I guess it doesn't, there's option 1. So a lot of the annexations around the city of Oshkosh happen in the town of Oshkosh on the western side. So therefore, I combine that district, town, and city, since there is more likely to be annexations there. In option 1, in the Neenah area, again, the annexations tend to be on the western side of the city of Menasha, specifically probably more so in 9, but also in 10. 10, the southwest part of the city also tends to grow quite a bit. So, you know, even in option 3, where District 30 creeps into the city of Neenah, I'm thinking it's just a matter of time where it will anyway once there is an annexation.
Thank you. So in your opinion, like if we're 10 years down the road and we're looking back, do you think 1 or 3, which one do you think ends up scoring better on that wholeness score?
With 10 years of annexations, I think either plan, honestly. You just never know where those annexations are going to pop up. That just tends to be where they are right now. Like I said, even if you pick option 1 for District 30, once there is an annexation in that southwest part of the city, 30 will be in the city as well.
Does either one look more forward-looking to you now?
Honestly, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then I just have just some comments for the board. I understand I'm going to be probably the only person speaking from a district that is probably most negatively impacted by 1 or 3. So as I took these maps around, one of the things that was really concerning for a lot of people, I represent currently District 23 and in the city of Oshkosh, and it straddles Highway 41. In option 2, it eliminated that straddling of Highway 41. In the remaining 1 and 3 leaves just a small portion on the east side of Highway 41. And so for folks in that area, I kind of heard an overwhelming concern that they felt disconnected from the rest of the district, that they felt like their community I think it's called I think there's two neighborhood associations in the city of Oshkosh that sort of kind of cover that area. and people felt like they were pulled out of those sort of existing community structures. So I understand the concerns that the town of Oshkosh would have in administering elections under Plan 2. But I think for my district, Plans 1 and 3 are a little bit suboptimal. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Schillinger. Next, we'll move to Supervisor Eisen, followed by Supervisor Lautenschlager. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the Planning Department for constructing these maps and adhering to the basic concepts of redistricting and remapping. And this is relevant to the concern of Supervisor Cox in particular. From my overview of the map changes, it seems to me that priority has been given in this redistricting process and mapping process to contiguousness and compactness. I'll offer an example from the northern part of the county, particularly District Number 3 and District Number 4. I've served District Number 4 since its creation back in 2008, when the board was downsized from 38 to 36. At that time, the district consisted of an area on the east side of Lake Winnebago, adjacent to Calumet County, encompassing the village of, or the town of Menasha and the city of Menasha. It included the Jefferson Park Hook. It included the subdivision in the town. It included the mobile home park in the city. It jumped from, if you look at the old map, the currently enacted map, you'll see that there is an island. District 3 is an island between two portions of District 4. At the time, the primary factor for establishing the district was the municipality, because when I was first elected back in 2006, my district, which was number 27, included the lake shore, the east lake shore on Lake Butamore, the Palisades that goes up through Appleton. It included the subdivision on the east side of the county, but it didn't include the mobile home park from the city. As a matter of fact, when I was elected, there was one street in Menasha that was in that District 27, and that was the street where Herb Kramer, my predecessor supervisor, lived. So you had a supervisor who lived on one street representing, in the city, representing all of the townspeople. And he was elderly, and I defeated him. And until the creation of the new maps, the district has been separated in islands. I've acquired in the new mapping 1/3 of District 3. District 3 has acquired 1/3 of my constituency, and both of our districts, both of the 3 and 4 districts, are now compact and contiguous. I can complain that 16 years of servicing and getting to know people in 1/3 of my district is going down the tubes in terms of electability, because they won't have to put my sign on their lawn anymore, and they won't have to vote for me. But I think that the job that the planners have done, using the concepts of redistricting, and in this case, compactness and contiguousness trumps the municipal connection. And the bottom line is, when the building blocks for these districts are put together, they get down to one next to the other, and they grow into wards, and they grow into districts. And I think that a supervisor has to understand that it's not always going to go in your favor, because I'm gonna get to meet 1/3 of the new constituency. And in the case of supervisor from district number 23, when you have annexations, it was explained at the Public Safety and Judiciary Committee by the planners that you can't go on what may be or what will be. You have to go on what is. And in the case of the areas not being developed, you can't project to the future for what that population will be. So I hope this contribution assists the supervisors in better understanding the process that it appears to me that the planners have taken. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. Next speaker is Supervisor Lautenschlager, followed by Supervisor Albrecht. Please go ahead, Supervisor Lautenschlager.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Basically, all I want to do right now is just to thank the planners for doing an excellent job and coming up with the maps in the condensed time frame that you really had. I think you did a very good job of what you did. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Lautenschlager. Next speaker is Supervisor Albrecht, followed by Supervisor Norton. Please go ahead, Supervisor Albrecht.
I just have a comment about at the last census, we affected about 7, 8 people. This time we're affecting very few, so it is what it is.
Thank you, Supervisor Albrecht. Next speaker, Supervisor Norton, followed by Supervisor Finch, and then Supervisor Stafford. Please go ahead, Supervisor Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few questions. So next week, we approve of the district map plan for us, and that doesn't get really finalized until November. At what point do the state legislature have to figure out maps for the state legislative and congressional races? That's one question I have, if someone can answer that for me.
I'll call on Director Bougie. It sounds like, Supervisor Norton, that we may have to get back to you with a definitive answer. Director Bougie?
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
Very good. I was just trying to answer for you. I could see the discussion over there. So we'll get an answer for you, Supervisor Norton, but we don't know it definitively tonight.
But, so we could, obviously, next week, we have to vote on one of the two plans. It really doesn't come finalized until November. And then, Mr. Chairman, are you going to tell us all how we're going to decide on the two plans at some point? Because that was a question that came up at the Judiciary Committee meeting yesterday. Thank you.
Certainly. And I can do that now, actually, because I've received a couple of comments about it. So first of all, the way it's on the agenda was intentional. Because my understanding was Judiciary and Public Safety, Judiciary wanted to offer both maps without giving an opinion as to which one it recommended definitively. It wanted the county board to make that decision. However, we also have to make sure that we notify the public what we might potentially vote on that evening. So there's one of two approaches that it can occur at the county board next week. And frankly, it'll be up to this board to decide how they want to do it. The way it's laid out allows for either one of these options. So what I mean by that is, number one, the county board can take them up just as they look on the agenda now for next week. Vote the first one up or down. If they vote it up, then the second one is a moot point and it's withdrawn from the agenda because we already adopted a map. If it's voted down, then we would move on to the next resolution and vote that one up or down. Technically, if the county board voted both of them down, then we wouldn't have a tentative plan, but we're not hoping for that situation. Now, there is another way, and I know there were some comments in regards to this that the county board could elect to do, and the way it's on the agenda allows for that. So in other words, the county board could, someone from the county board could request, so to speak, secret ballot. In other words, that you all have an opportunity to vote on it, and then whichever map receives the most votes, that would be tallied by the clerk, just like we do when we elect county board chairman, county board vice chairperson. When we do those elections, as you know, it's a secret ballot, and it's read into the record which had the most votes. So if someone requested a secret ballot and we chose to take that route, then it would be between one of those two maps, and whichever one had the most votes, then that would be the tentative map. However, the only thing I would tell you is that vote, then I would ask for this county board to take another official vote on that exact resolution right after that. In other words, if the vote tally said 19 to 16 or 19 to 14, let's say, on map 1 hypothetically in the secret ballot, then I'd say, okay, the secret ballot was 1914. Now let's formalize it with that resolution. All those in favor, say aye. You see what I'm saying? Just to keep it formal and so that it's clear. So the bottom line is, it will be in the county board's hand. We intentionally put it on the agenda to allow for either one of those options and to ensure that the public saw that we may be considering either one of those.
May I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Certainly.
I asked the clerk, did you check out, what did we do in 2001, 2007, and 2011 when we had to do this process before? I'm just curious what we did then.
So I don't know if they know, you're going to ask me my memory. If I remember correctly, I believe there was one map, one resolution that was on the agenda, from what I recall from the last. I believe that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. All right. So we'll move on next to Supervisor Finch, followed by Supervisor Stafford, and then it looks like Supervisor Eisen has additional comments. So please go ahead, Supervisor Finch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being on the board for a while, anytime we have changes like this and stuff like that, and whatever may happen, many times your smaller municipalities get cut short. And I'm truly hoping that this board will do the right thing and make all municipalities equal. Because there have been times we haven't. We've took care of this municipality and forgot about that one. But what I want to see is us to work as one unit and work together as Winnebago County, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Finch. Next, we'll go to Supervisor Stafford, followed by Supervisor Brunn on Zoom. So Supervisor Stafford, please go ahead.
Thank you. Actually, you already answered my question. My question was what Supervisor Norton had. So.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Stafford. Next, we'll move to Supervisor Brunn on Zoom, followed by Supervisor Eisen. Supervisor Brunn, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm going to speak to what Supervisor Norton was asking. Another option, I think, could be voting on maps 1 and 3 at the same time. Going through it, you could just, instead of saying yes, you could say 1. Instead of saying no, you could say 3. And at the end of that roll call, we would know what the majority took. If that's a suggestion that's legal by Robert's rules. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Supervisor Brunn. So before we go to Supervisor Eisen, I had seen a hand up named Owner, and I'd seen that up during public comments. So I thought that was someone from the public, and I was actually going to give that one an opportunity once we were done here because it went away earlier. But now I understand it might be Supervisor Wingren, so I certainly apologize if that's the case, Supervisor Wingren. I could not tell by the name. Supervisor Wingren, if you'd like to speak, please go ahead and open up your mic. We'll go ahead and try to open it up you as well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I apologize, Supervisor
Well,
Wingren.
that's frustrating, you know that? It's really frustrating. But thank you very much. Thank you. I just listen, you're listening. I appreciate, first of all of the supervisors' comments. They're passionate about what they believe. That's wonderful. But during this whole process, as an individual supervisor and as a member of the Judiciary Committee, I certainly understand better now what Abraham Lincoln said, though, so many years ago. You can't please all the people all the time. You just can't. No matter what you do, you're going to not satisfy someone. And that's just the way life is. My pet peeve, and Mr. Lautenschlager sort of touched on it, was when people start talking about my district. It is not your district. It belongs to the people. So whether you're there running for it or someone else is there running against you or for it, that doesn't make any difference. That's just the way the system works, and that's what's called democracy. So don't say that my district was taken from me or takes me out of my district. That's not what happens at all. The voters get, thank God, to pick their representatives. We politicians don't get to pick our voters, and that's a big difference. Run wherever you are. You're all good people. If you are in a different district or a different line, run. The big secret is there isn't a whole big line waiting, is there? So, do your best. And I think that, again, thank you to Jerry and Diane and Adam and all the people in that department for doing just a wonderful job. Knowing that they cannot please all the people all the time. I'll say it again for the final time, hopefully. I've told Jerry Bougie this. He seems to be the guy that is between the dog and the hydrant. But he's done a wonderful job. And he's tried to please all the people all the time. And when he ever gets that down to a science, let me know. You can make a fortune writing a book. So thanks to all of my fellow supervisors for the wonderful comments tonight. And I'm sure that next week, whatever choice we'll make will be a good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Wingren. And just for those of you who know, on Zoom, you see a name, and that name said Owner. So I thought it was from the public because I saw the name earlier today. So I apologize for Supervisor Wingren. Now you'll see the name has changed to Supervisor Wingren, so I'll certainly know better if he calls in. But it's very difficult. The technology is challenging, but we just do the best we can. So thanks for understanding, Supervisor Wingren. So next we'll have Supervisor Eisen. Please go ahead, Supervisor Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It appears that the choice given to the board is between option 1 and option 3. And I would like to, I suppose this will perhaps put the planners on the spot, but they're the ones that have the expertise and the knowledge and put this together. I would like to ask the planners, what is the prime benefit of option number 1? And what is the prime benefit of option number 3? I know there are concepts that we adhere to, but there needs to, if there's a choice, we know that there's not a benefit or there's a issue with number 2, but what are the prime benefits? If we're looking at this objectively for 36 districts, and we're not complicating it by reducing it to 28, but what's the prime benefit? Why should we select prime benefit number 1? Why should we take number 1? Why should we take number 3? What are the concepts and factors, the issues and pluses and minuses of either one? Help us get the basis for making a decision.
Dr. Bougie, you want to go over a little bit? I know you did a little bit earlier in regards to the wholeness and compactness, but maybe if you can give it a little more of an overview.
Sure. Thank you. The benefit of both plans to start with, they're both meeting all of the requirements of federal law and state law, and it's also meeting some other considerations of protecting sort of the rural areas from the urban areas. There's only, at this point with options 1 and option 3, there's really just small subtleties that, create a difference between one map or another. And I think generally it's really going to depend on your perspective, where your district is, are you more of a rural supervisor versus an urban supervisor? There really isn't any clear benefit of one map over the other than basic subtleties. We tried to draw that out in some of the data here. Option 1 is, kind of meeting, some of the criteria slightly better than option 3. Equal population, but again, it's so small that it really is, the difference is so small. Option 1 again has wholeness of municipalities, meaning, trying to keep the districts from the city into the town kind of separate, although not entirely, but you try to keep those separate. So, there's small subtleties that, looking at it completely objectively, you've got option 1 that, edges out option 3. But again, if this board decides to go with option 3, you're still getting a very good map. You're getting a very good plan here. So it's in the end, it really comes down to where you're coming from, what your perspective is. Are you more of a rural person versus urban supervisor versus rural supervisor? Things of that nature. So I'm sorry about that there isn't a clear winner here. It's really going to depend on what your perspective is.
Please go ahead.
I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I would also, at this point, share what I would say would be advisory for those supervisors that have a strong preference for one option over the other. My suggestion would be to put your best case together, to present it to the board next week, and convince the rest of us which option would prevail. In that manner, we would have the option that is preferable.
Thank you, Supervisor Eisen. I'm just verifying, I don't see any other county board supervisor on Zoom with any comments. And I don't see any more in person as well. So we'll go ahead and conclude that presentation. I definitely want to thank the Planning Department and GIS for all their efforts and information this evening. Greatly appreciated, and for all your effort to answer our questions, recognizing it's a challenging process and not easy answers, but you certainly did a wonderful job. So thank you very much for all that effort. Just again, so everyone's on the same page for the process. So next week, Tuesday, we'll have a meeting again. That will be to, included on that is the item to adopt the tentative plan. Once again, maps 1 and map 3 will be on there as separate resolutions. This board will have the opportunity to decide as to how they go about making a determination of one versus the other and going forward with that. And that will be a combined hybrid Zoom / in-person. As I mentioned last time, for the redistricting process, we're going to keep it with the hybrid. Once that's finished, October 19th would be our next meeting, and then we're going to either do it all in person or all on Zoom. So I just kind of want to make you aware of it. I cannot tell you what that will be on October 19th, because as you know, that's over a month away from now, but it would be one or the other rather than the hybrid. Okay, just so everyone's on the same page. All right, and with that, I do want to thank again Lighthouse Productions, certainly for being here this evening and all their efforts, the county clerk and the corporation council, parks and facilities as well for all their efforts. I know it's difficult and challenging with this sort of meeting, but they've all done an outstanding job. Oh yeah, and Oshkosh Media certainly as well, certainly for publicizing these meetings. Once again, that also is challenging in this sort of environment as well. So greatly appreciate it as well. And with that, I will then entertain a motion to adjourn. I'll call on Supervisor Albrecht for a motion to adjourn to September 21st. Supervisor Albrecht? There's a motion and a second to adjourn until Tuesday, September 21st. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.